Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a second. Mayor Butler will be joining us in a little bit, but we're going to give folks a few minutes to hop on, get settled before we get in today's very intimate conversation about the 2020 census, but also about civic engagement and how we can do our part to ensure that people are counted in the 2020 census. Amidst everything else that's going on in the world right now, we know that it's truly important, almost more so now than ever, that we are counted in 2020. So as folks continue to hop on today's call, I want folks to know that we will have this conversation recorded and will be on our YouTube channel as a part of our I Count virtual bus tour. So welcome to Faircount's fourth stop on the virtual bus tour. We're thrilled to be virtually in Clayton County today. In March of this year, we launched a statewide bus tour where we actually had a real bus on the road where we were bringing awareness to the 2020 census and to mobilize Georgia residents to complete the census. Within a few days, we had to take the bus off the road and suspend it due to the global pandemic. Fortunately, we were able to make a stop in Clayton County at Divine Faith International before we had to suspend our tour. That was a phenomenal stop. We were able to do a significant amount of outreach to families and young people. So we're grateful that we were able to do that. Our outreach has continued statewide, virtually, digitally. In addition to this particular event that we're doing virtually for Clayton County, our field team has been texting, they've been calling, we are doing press, we're doing robocalls, teletown halls, all to make sure that people know the importance of the census. As of this morning, our team and our volunteers in Clayton County have made over 4,600 calls into Clayton County to encourage people to participate. I know Brecca is excited about that.
Yes.
And as of this morning, Clayton County had a self-response rate of 54.3%. Compared to Georgia's self-response rate of 57.1. So we do have a little work to do, but we're certainly going in the right direction. So I want to get to the conversation today. First I'd like to thank and introduce our special guest. We have Dr. Shakir Abdullah, Vice President of Student Affairs at Clayton State University, if you'll give him a little wave. And we have Ms. Brecca Johnson, co-chair of the Clayton County Complete Count Committee also. And again, we look to be joined sometime during our conversation by Mayor Butler of the city of Forest Park. So with that, thank you to our folks that are sitting at home or at work that are tuned into this conversation. We want to make sure that you're getting information that you can then pass on to your friends, your colleagues, your peers about what's happening in Clayton. So to our participants and our guests, each of you have been advocating for the census in Clayton County, in different ways and different methods. How do you see the census benefiting Clayton State and Clayton County respectively? So first I'm going to go to Dr. Abdullah.
So Ed, thank you for the opportunity to really be a part of this conversation. We've seen the census as being essential really to the success of Clayton State University. We are happy to work as a partner. We're excited to be engaged. We've got more than 7,000 students at Clayton State, and we want to make sure that all those students are counted. The census is looking for folks where they are at the moment. I know there's sometimes confusion about, well, I still live at home. I'm counted by my parents and all that good stuff. We want you to be counted where you live. And so our students who live on campus, we want to make sure that they're counted. And while the census doesn't directly benefit Clayton State, the data collected will benefit the resources in Clayton County and Forest Park and in this area. Our students will have more resources available. They'll have better bus services. They'll have better response rates from public safety. They'll have more resources that they can take advantage of. And I think when people understand how many people are in this region, how many people are down here thriving, it really makes a difference. It tells a different story. I think sometimes the story of Clayton County is often overlooked. And by making sure that everyone at Clayton State counts, making sure that everyone at Clayton State is counted, it can really make a difference for the short term and the long term. So this is why we're excited to be a part of this conversation and to make sure that all of our students are participating, and not only are students participating, but they're encouraging their families at home to participate wherever those homes may be. We've got students from all over the state, out of state as well. And so part of it is just the messaging. We were, before we sent students home, we were able to host a number of programs where we highlighted the importance of the census, and we showed folks how to fill out the census. As soon as it was available online, we had students filling out the census at tables and things like that. So we are really excited to be a part of the process, and I think it's important to educate our students on their civic duty to be engaged in the census process as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And, a couple of the points that you mentioned there, we'll touch on here in a little bit later in the conversation. Also, I want to now turn to Brecca to kind of find out, what's going on the county level, understanding that you've really been leading that charge, and I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of your meetings in person. And I know that you guys are doing phenomenal work there. So just want to kind of hear why has the county put so many resources into ensuring a fair and accurate count?
Well, I think we go back to the idea of taking the census is a civic right, and just like voting is. And we want to ensure that all of our citizens are counted, because in 2010, we only had 68% people of our residents to actually take it. And we lost 32%, which accounts for tens of millions of dollars that could be utilized to infuse economic development, which is we'll get new business here, new companies, small businesses to come here, and more funding for our low to moderate income families, for programs like businesses for COVID-19 funds. We receive federal COVID-19 funds from the federal government for our businesses and for our nonprofits. And that number that they gave us, the $2 million we received, was a direct connection to our count from 2010, because they allocate funds based on our census count. So we miss out on amazing programs and recovery programs that we would otherwise, the other jurisdictions are able to enjoy because their residents participate. And we just want to encourage folks that in addition to the participation, we want people definitely to know that it is a civic process. It's not political. It is only for the response in order for you to get our share of the dollars in our community. The Complete Count Committee, every person on that committee has been vital to getting the word out, having outreach opportunities for our citizens. All of the cities, all 7 cities in the jurisdiction, at our last meeting on Wednesday, and Dr. Abdullah can attest to this, we said, okay, folks, we're getting some things done, but we gotta do a little bit better. We've got to find a way to reach our citizens where they are in the midst of COVID-19, and how can we do that? So the challenge to them is we raise our percentage rate 5 points every 2 weeks. If we do that now, by the end of beginning of October, we'll be at 100%. And we need those dollars not only for our programs to help with recovery relief, but also for our veterans, for down payment assistance to low and moderate income families, to nonprofits, and so on and so forth. And we want to have representation here for our county, so that the laws and things that all of our political unrest and all the things that have been going on in our society as of late, we can deal with, and we can have the funding to bring those communities back to where they should be, where they benefit us the most.
Awesome.
And so Ed, before we go forward, can you turn off the chat feature? It looks like we're getting Zoom bombed, and I think you want to nip that as early as possible.
Sure, no, we did.
Okay, excellent.
So I want to talk to, Brecca, a little bit about, some of your outreach. And I know you guys received some funding, especially targeted at Black men. and how we engage. And I want to talk a little bit about how you're thinking about doing that virtually right now.
Right. So we are putting some time and effort and resources into digital and social media advertisements. We are working with Black Dads Count, which is Fathers Incorporated, because they were doing a lot of this outreach prior to COVID, and they've been doing outreach to fathers and young Black men in the county. We are also, as it pertains to Black men and minorities, we have a lot of foreign-born minorities here that we want to reach out to. The big, and I hear this time and time again, do people realize that their information is confidential? This information is not used to go to the FBI, to CIA, to ICE, or any of these organizations. This information is simply a count of the nation's population. And for our purposes in Clayton, it's a count of Clayton, it's Clayton County's count, so that the dollars that are going to be allocated for each person, we actually see. But if the federal government says, oh, well, even though our statistics show that there's 275,000 people in Clayton County, we only have a census count for 140. You see this disparity in how much we would lose in our resources than what we have to gain, and we have an opportunity now to get to our 100% and get our fair share funding.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And I'm glad you guys are kind of pivoting in a way to do that outreach virtually, because I know for Census Day, which was on April 1st, you were planning to do this big concert, and
yes, we had it all worked out, and we may actually still do that. But we're in talks with some of our partners, our cities, about as people start to kind of come out of their homes a little bit more, that we'll be able to still, have some social distancing events. So we'll talk about that some more, I'm sure, as time goes on. But one of the things I did want to mention about how we're reaching our Black males is through our churches, through our fraternities, our local chapters, and also we have a partnership with the school board and the food pantry, where they give food away every Friday from about 9:30 until noon every Friday. And we are set up at these locations throughout the county to provide people with, we have our library services has hotspots, we have laptops and iPads there for people to actually take the census there. And you get a snazzy t-shirt as a result, saying that, hey, let's be counted, and ask me about the census.
Oh, I love
because the whole idea is we have to make it personal to people, that the people we're serving. So we have to shift our message to say the census count is the federal funding that allows for these programs to be funded and for you to get the assistance that you need. So that's kind of what our focus has been.
That's awesome. I want to now turn to Dr. Abdullah to talk a little bit about, COVID-19 obviously was something very unprecedented and continues to be kind of interrupted the semester and everything that's going on. Can you, as the director of student affairs at the university, can you talk a little bit about how you all have had to, just pivot in general, and what's that been like for students, particularly you have, over 7,000 students, and then you also have representation from over 30 different states. And so, what's that been like, navigating that?
And so it has been a significant challenge. And I think professionally, we have been trying to work through this and really work on our plan. And it came in waves. So I'll go back to the beginning. Once we realized that we were going to have to send students home, we needed to come up with a plan to send students home safely, quickly, and efficiently. And that was the first phase. There were some students who, for various reasons, were unable to go home, so they were able to stay on campus, and we were able to support those students, give them the resources they need. We worked with some local food pantries, Urban Recipe, to make sure that those students had things to eat. But we also, wanted to make sure that they were healthy, so we enforced some social distancing, Students weren't allowed to have visitors. I mean, it was a really big change for our students because they're so used to, the college life that comes with hanging out with your friends, spending time, engaging, socializing, all of those things. And it really changed. It really changed for a lot of them. And for some, it was a significant adjustment. We have a number of resources that we provide at Clayton State. One of those resources is our Counseling and Psychological Services unit. And so those numbers actually went up during COVID-19. In terms of the telecounseling, our counselors were able to engage students virtually and to talk to them about the transition, the impact of the transition. This was all a part of our process, and working with students, supporting students was a big deal. But then another adjustment our students had to make was taking classes wholly online. We needed to make sure that our students had the resources, had the access, whether it's web access, whether it was devices that they can use. We tried a number of different options. We expanded our Wi-Fi in the parking lots of our residence halls. If students didn't have Wi-Fi at home, we were trying to do everything that we could to accommodate them. Some students had tragedies such as laptops crashing and dying, and so we had to find resources to help support those students and pay for those things. And academically, we wanted to make sure students did well. And students did well. Students actually did better this semester on average than they have on previous semesters. Not by a lot, but still was significant in the midst of the pandemic. In addition to academic success, we also needed to keep students engaged. We created a number of programs. There were a number of virtual programs. We had virtual concerts, virtual parties. Student organizations were able to meet virtually and able to engage with each other. Career services stayed active and were able to help students with resumes virtually and able to help students with virtual internships. So we had to pivot, but I think our institution did really, really well in terms of the pivot. This wasn't ideal for students, and some students, shared their complaints and their frustrations, and we listened and we tried to work to adjust and to engage them. But again, talked about the better grades academically. We also had an increase in student involvement virtually. So students were attending more programs, students were engaged, they were watching some of the yoga classes that we offered online. They were, watching movies together apart, and there was a lot of really good engagement and some things that we learned and some things that we're going to keep in place moving forward. And it was a really significant adjustment for our students. It was a significant adjustment for our institution. And I think one of the biggest losses was the loss of graduation. We had a number of students, who are the first in their family to graduate. And so this is a really big deal. And to not really have the pomp and circumstances that comes along with the typical graduation was disappointing for a lot of folks. We are working on a plan to have a in-person graduation whenever it's feasible, but President Hines addressed our students and kind of shared with them in the success. We had all of our faculty and staff shared congratulatory videos, and those are posted on our website. So there was a number of different things that we had to put in place in order to make it feel like the experience that students were looking for. And when it came to the census, we were constantly back and forth in terms of encouraging students to get engaged. I can go back to my email, and I think one day I was back and forth with a student, maybe 10 different emails, just talking about the importance and the process of the census. And, this was a student who lived at home and tried to figure out, okay, what can I do to make sure my family has gotten this filled out? Do we do this? Do we do that? And so I was able to walk that student through that. And I think because we have really spent the entire spring semester emphasizing the importance of the census and putting up tables and exposing students to the census. We had plenty of giveaways that Brecca provided for us. So those were excellent. We were able to take them to events. And so students were aware. Students were looking forward to the census. And so when they got that digital reminder from me to make sure that they filled it out, a number of students did that. We still have some work to do. We want to make sure our response rates are as high as possible. The good thing is we're able to count all of the students who are in the residence halls on March 1st. And so we'll be able to submit those numbers. We're just waiting on our code to get that turned in so we can have all of those students count. And that's about 1,200 students right there. So we're excited about what we learned from the pandemic, and we're looking forward to having students back on campus this fall. We are working on all that communication. I just had a virtual orientation this morning. I've got another virtual orientation this afternoon because, we've got to do things differently, but at the same time, we're looking forward to welcoming students back. We're staying engaged with students. And the reality is that while we have had to do a lot of things differently, we still have been engaged. We've still been able to support our students. And I think that's the thing that I think I'm probably most proud of about my team and the rest of the folks at Clayton State, because we have remained relevant, we've remained engaged, and we're continuing to do our role and to be a part, to be a community partner. And I think that's what this webinar is about. I think this is what our continued partnerships are about. And we're working to do more and to do a better job of engaging the community. And this is one of the ways we're doing it. And I think our students would tell you we have pivoted as quickly as possible. And while not ideal for everybody, I think we have done a really good job of supporting a majority of our students.
That's great. It sounds like you guys are certainly leading the charge in the higher education space as it relates to mobilizing students around completion of the census, but also making sure, first that they're taken care of in terms of mentally, emotionally, and with their academics. And we appreciate Clayton State's commitment to students and their families. There's one thing I do want to follow up on in just a second, but I do want to go over to Ms. Johnson now with Clayton County, because you guys have, from one of the meetings I remember attending pre-COVID, there was a really great amount of cross collaboration between departments within the county. And can you talk a little bit about how that's been, as from your aspect and your perspective of leading that charge? You're managing all of these different spaces, and folks over here are doing different types of outreach and up there, but you're all putting it together towards one common theme, making sure that everybody has the same goal in mind.
Okay, well, trust me, it has, everybody who's been a part of the county and my co-chair, Jacqueline Howell, with the city of Riverdale, have really been super duper instrumental and really an amazing part of how this stuff works. And, it's a lot to get your arms around when you're trying to manage it for the county, especially a county that has had low counts, and we got to find those hard to count areas and make sure we capitalize in those areas of outreach. We knew we had to have all of our forward-facing departments, so people who interface directly with the public, like Parks and Rec, our youth commissioners department, our youth services department, our senior services, our school board. So there have been collaborations here and there, but for the census, you have to kind of get your arms around everybody to say, okay, I need IT because they're going to be helping me with posting things online. I've got communications to get the information out with newsletters and social media and what have you. So it was no easy, it's no easy job, but everybody has been so willing and helpful because we want to see we all want to see our count go up. And a lot of us either live in Clayton County or have lived in Clayton County and want to see this county get what it deserves. We're not asking for something that should not already be ours. I want to be clear about that. We're not asking or begging for anything. We're saying, yes, I'm checking my name to say I'm in attendance, I'm here. I would like to have my, several thousand, tens of $1,000s for a 10-year period to help in my community. So I want to empower people, and that's what part of the Complete Count Committee is to empower each other and support one another, especially as far as the county and the cities working together, is to empower each other, because whatever resources we have, we're going to help in any way we can. All of our print media, social media content, we send that around so we can have a consistent message. And messaging is everything. So that's been the real need to make sure we have everybody at the table so that we can cover, and library services. I got to give a super shout out to library services because one, they've gotten a grant for us to be able to have more of a resource for our outreach process. And when we go on site and all the wonderful events that we had planned before COVID, they were going to be at all those events, signing people up for the census. They would have laptops and iPads there. We'd have our giveaways and what have you. But we're still, as people starting to come out a little bit more and more, we're able to do that. And we're trying to meet people where they are. That is the key, meeting people where they are.
That certainly is the key, and making it relational and showing what the direct impact to them is, I think is certainly key. And because the census is not one of those super sexy topics that people are just interested
in. It's not sexy,
in
but there's money involved that is ours. So
yeah,
maybe that's the sexy part.
Money will always do it. We did get a question from one of our guests about volunteer opportunities, in Clayton County, but also, for Faircount. So I want to point to you just from the Clayton County perspective, and then I'll talk a little bit from Faircount. But are there ways where if they're residents of the county and they want to be involved in outreach that they could do that now in a safe and social distance way?
Absolutely. So on the website, if you go to Clayton County, ClaytonCountyGA.gov, and you'll click on Census 2020, it will take you directly to our page where you can volunteer. You can request a yard sign to put in your yard, because we'll have our yard signs in next week and post those all over the county. And volunteers and people who would like to have a stake sign, a yard sign, or a T-shirt, we'll be able to give you one, because we want, those are the trusted voices in their communities. If you live in a subdivision and you have 10 neighbors, tell 10 neighbors about the census and how important it is, because a lot of people don't necessarily understand how it relates to them. We have, every Friday, we're going to be going to 5 schools in Clayton County where there is a food pantry set up, where they're serving between 200 and 350 families, and give away food, produce, and what have you. So we love to have volunteers to participate in helping sign people up for the census while they're getting their food, because this is a way for us to continue to have dollars to invest in. This is our version of COVID-19 relief funds for our families. So we want to be sure that if you would like to volunteer, and I'll put my email address in the chat, but I will tell you now, it's Brecca, BRECCA .Johnson @ClaytonCountyGA.gov. Email me or put your information in the volunteer box online, and I will get it, and I will follow up with you, and we'll see what events that you can attend.
Awesome. And from a Faircount perspective, at faircount.org, we do have a number of opportunities. We have what we call count captains all across the state of Georgia, but even in other states as well, that are galvanizing and mobilizing people to participate. We have a number of toolkits that can be downloaded where you can organize, even in this virtual space that we're in right now. Like I said, we're doing phone banking, we're doing the texting. We're just trying to be innovative. This virtual bus tour is one of the innovative ways that we are still trying to reach thousands of people to ensure that we get those self-response rates up. I want to go now back to Dr. Abdullah. You were talking a little bit about students. There's one thing, the census directs, roughly $1.5 trillion worth of resources to cities, counties, towns across the entire nation, and that's on an annual basis. Education, healthcare, infrastructure, anything you can generally think about is impacted through that funding. From an education standpoint, one of those programs is Pell Grants. That funding has a direct impact coming from the census. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of Pell Grants to your students? And if it wasn't there, what that would mean for a significant amount of your students?
Absolutely. I think people have to understand the Pell Grant is money that students don't have to pay back. It's money that they get and they can spend on their education And because of our student demographics, we've probably got 70 to 80% of our students are Pell eligible, and they need every single dime of that Pell grant to help pay for their tuition and to help pay for their room and board at Clayton State. And so to get some accurate numbers is really critical. It's really critical. And I think because in many ways we're a regional university, the more folks who are represented in the region, the more resources that can be allocated in the form of Pell grants, the more resources that can be allocated in the form of K-12. Obviously, if you don't get through K-12, then you're not able to take advantage of a collegiate education opportunity unless you complete the GED. But even some of those GED programs have to be funded based on the numbers that are known in terms of the people in the region. So we're really, I would really encourage people to make sure you're counted and to stay engaged. One of the things that I've learned by volunteering and doing this work with Brecca and others on Complete Count Clayton County is just really the impact of the census. One of the things that stood out to me in terms of a data point is that between $2,000 and $3,500 per person is lost if folks aren't counted. And that is a significant amount of money. And I think, folks have some concerns and fears that, this information is going to be used against them. And we run into those same kind of hurdles about folks when they need to fill out the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA. This is what you have to fill out in order to get a Pell grant and to be able to take advantage of financial aid and all those different resources that help you actually pay for college. So the fear is not irrational, because historically, this data, some data has been taken and used to marginalize people of color in the United States, and that history is real, and we see it playing out even in some cases today. But the bottom line is those kind of data, the data for the census, that information is critical. The FAFSA data is critical. It has to be completed just to be able to take advantage of the resources that are available to you, resources that you have already earned. As Brecca identified, you're not asking for anything new. You're not asking for a handout or anything like that. This is what is allocated for you, and you can't take advantage of it unless you make sure that you are counted. So I'm really a big proponent of encouraging folks to be counted, to stand up and be counted, fill out that information, turn in the data points, and do it with a sense of immunity, because you're not going to be harmed, or you're not going to be negatively impacted by completing this information that can help the county get the resources that it needs, but then also help you as an individual and your family get the resources that they need. So I would encourage you, just take advantage of it. Make sure you get it taken care of. Make sure you do it. You can do it quickly online. It didn't take me more than 20 minutes to fill out the information for my family. So would certainly encourage you all to take advantage of that.
Thank you for the insight, and I'm so glad you spent some time to elaborate on the education piece, because that's one of the ways we can certainly make it relational to folks and their families. Brecca, understanding that you are the assistant director with the community development department in Clayton County, we did get a question in about specific communities and neighborhoods within the county. Is there a space for them to go on to the census, the county specific census website, to find out how their community specifically can maybe do outreach, or what their outreach plan is virtually right now?
Okay, so based on, and I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but the U.S. Census has provided a response rates webpage that tells you what the response rates are for your county, for the cities within that county, and all the way down to census tracts and block tracts throughout the United States. And what we focus more heavily is in those areas that are hardest to reach. Now we look at the 2010 numbers, but we're certainly looking at the numbers today. That says in certain areas we don't have, our count is not quite as high, or certain cities, or all of our cities, including the county, we're going to continue to increase our number of participating folks in the census, but ensuring that we engage those hard to reach areas is key. And if there are residents or citizens of Clayton County where you would like to be a part of setting up an event or what have you, please let me know. You can contact me again by emailing me or online on our webpage so that we can get something set up in your community. So again, the county's here to support the efforts because again, you're the trusted voices in your community, and you're going to be the person that's going to be able to talk to your neighbor a whole lot quicker than I would. If I'm coming, oh, my name is Brecca Johnson from Clayton County, and whatever people have as their reservations about local government or government in general, I can't stress enough how important it is for us to be involved and take advantage. And it's funny enough, of all the 50 states, Minnesota is the state that has the highest count right now. And that goes to show with all the civil unrest that has happened and all the tragedy that has gotten us to this point, people are saying, hey, I'm going to get the most out of this process. And every community should be that. Clayton is no different.
No, you're absolutely right. So in the website that you articulated about the self-response, it's 2020census.gov. And self-response rates, and it is truly an interactive map. And of course, Fair Count, we mess around with it every day, part of the day, to make sure we're targeting the right areas. Both of you have touched a little bit on the misinformation that's out there around the census, and so I'm curious to know if there are certain things that you've heard that you've tried to dispel in terms of myths that you may want to pass on to some of our audience today.
So I haven't heard directly. I just know my experience. I was trying to go over in my mind. This is probably my fourth census and the third one that I can remember. And I just remember, the concern.
Age, Dr. Abdullah. You're telling me age,
hey, that's a math problem. People got to figure that out. So, I think I just remember the angst that people expressed over the years and really just the concerns. There's also some dismissal that folks in communities will do. It's like, this doesn't mean anything. But the reality is that it does. And I think it's been used as a tool to underfund areas just because folks are not standing up and being counted. So I would just encourage folks to ask questions if you're concerned. Obviously, those shirts that Brecca is sharing to ask me about the census, ask somebody about the census. We'll get some questions answered for you. And while I'm no expert, I know a whole lot more now than I did prior to serving in this capacity and doing this work. And the reality is that if people know that they could be costing their communities multiple thousands of dollars by not filling this out, I think they would understand that this is a critical piece, and they would encourage their neighbors to make sure that they're filling out the information as well, because oftentimes folks will complain about what's not available or what's missing, but here's an opportunity to kind of fill in that gap. So definitely take advantage of it and get the right information about the census by asking someone who knows, or by doing a quick Google search or anything like that, and you can get kind of the real deal on the census.
I think that's spot on. I couldn't add anything else to that. But Brecca, have you heard anything, particularly as you've been moving around?
Well, and we have made an effort to reach out to our Latino and Asian communities with the language barrier. We have to ensure that the print media and the information we put out is also in Spanish and Vietnamese, because Vietnamese is our highest Asian population within the county. And it's super important for us to realize with that language barrier that we reach out to our students, high school students, and we have a couple, we have some variation of demographics on our youth commission, and we have utilized, them for the fact that they are youth and they're, still high school students. I have one graduating senior, and also to emphasize how important it is for our folks, even if they're immigrants, that they can, or here illegally, they still can, our money is our money for the count. So we had to dispel misnomers about whether that information is going to ICE or immigration and or any other organization, federal organization, and it is not. The whole idea is these federal dollars are in place, like Dr. Abdullah said earlier, they're in place specifically for communities that need additional resources. And we are one of those communities, like others as well. So that means that the communities that are already doing well and have higher income levels are continuing to get more and more money because they're filling out their census. We have to think about it the same way. We want to continue to get more and more and more. It's not enough to just have 68%. We want 100%. So that we can have all the dollars that are necessary, because we're helping our veterans, our schools, the Pell grant, helping kids get into college, and go to places like Clayton State, Georgia State, our local community colleges. So that's our universities. Excuse me, I'm not gonna call y'all a college, y'all a university. So so it's just super important that people leave this seminar, in my opinion, of this is our right, this money is ours. Minnesota is leading the nation in this effort because they understand the importance of why we need to get our resources and get federal funding to handle a lot of different things. So whether you're on the left or the right, it's just a matter of getting the money that we deserve.
And I wish I could take both of you on the road with me on this virtual bus tour. A really good show.
I'll go as long as y'all social distance.
Well, the good thing though, Ed, is you recorded it, so we can.
Right, exactly. Now you can.
But I wanted to make sure our viewers knew that Mayor Butler was not able to join us. She's having, I think, some technical issues. Zoom could be iffy depending on the day. So we are glad that this conversation is going to be recorded, and we will be able to publicize that on our YouTube channel. We'll make sure that both Dr. Abdullah has it as well as Brecca with Clayton County. Sort of going into the last part of our conversation today, our guest has been really gracious with answering a lot of the questions, but this is really a fun activity that we like to do to end out a lot of our virtual bus tour stops so far, because we learned a lot about counties, we learned cities, but it's also a way, I think, to let folks know maybe something new about the place in which they reside. But in about 60 seconds or so, I want each one of you to just tell myself and our viewers about what it is that makes Clayton County so special to you. You could have been born and raised there, or you could have just moved there recently. But what is it that makes Clayton County so special in your heart? So I want to start with Brecca and then make our way to Dr. Abdullah.
I would say first and foremost, on behalf of Clayton County, Chairman Jeff and Turner. So I would say our residents and our business owners are what make this county amazing, followed by our leadership who are helping to craft the policy in order to allow new types of businesses into the county, trending businesses that add to our economy here. We're also, Clayton County, it has 85% of the world's busiest airport outlying our borders. And what is so important is making sure that people understand that Clayton County is bustling, it is upcoming. Our leadership is committed to continuing the fight of a push-pull economic development strategy to get business to come here and tell them, we have amazing infrastructure. We're right by the airport. The airport is within Clayton County, and we have a lot of folks developers and business owners who are willing to do more and are continuing to build, like FedEx and UPS and Cummings. And we have a lot of factories, but we also have a lot of commercial property as well. So we're continuing to build our single family homes. We're continuing to build for our residents. Senior housing is always our hot topic for housing, multifamily housing. So Clayton County is a jewel in the Southern Crescent, and we are so close to the airport. We want to encourage people to know that with these census dollars, it allows us to do more. It allows us to provide incentives to even bigger businesses to come to the county, to have nicer neighborhoods and better schools. And just, I want to send a huge shout out to Dr. Beasley, Dr. Smith, and Jada Dawkins on the work that they've been doing for their students, and the collaboration that the county has with them on making this a better place for our residents to live.
Awesome.
60 seconds.
That, well, hey.
Maybe longer.
You love the county like you do. It's okay if you go over 60 seconds. I see that Mayor Butler has joined us, so thank you, Mayor Butler. I want to turn to Dr. Abdullah to finish out on that, and then I'm going to get over to you, Mayor, to make sure we get you here in the conversation before we log off. But go ahead, Dr. Abdullah.
And I think for me, the thing I love about Clayton County is really the potential. It's been amazing for me to do this work and to get to know a lot of the leaders around the county. But in my work, I get to see students come in and develop and grow. And so I see them come in, some lost and confused, and then I see them develop and become who they're destined to be, become leaders on campus, become leaders in the community, become really, the future of our region. And I think I look at, Clayton County in general as a whole. I look at this opportunity as a chance for us to continue to build on that potential, to continue to grow in the potential, because I don't look at what is, I look at what could be and just imagine that. And I'm excited about what the future holds just because of the coordination of all the regional leadership, the engagement of an institution like Clayton State with, under the leadership of President Tim Hines. So I'm excited. I had a chance to go to the state of the county event earlier this year. And again, I'm excited about the potential in Clayton County, and I'm really just looking forward to being a part of what will be. So I think the potential is the thing I love most about the area.
Awesome. I want to now turn to Mayor Butler to get her in the conversation. I think you're on. How you doing, Mayor Butler?
I'm well. How's everyone doing?
I'm so glad you were able to join us.
Yes, I do want to apologize. We actually had our budget hearing scheduled, and so I ran out to participate. Then I'm going to have to jump off really soon to get back to the budget hearings.
Well, we appreciate your time, and we know that that's really important. So really quickly, if you could just tell us, why has Forest Park made census outreach in 2020 a priority? What does it mean for the city of Forest Park?
Well, I think our census outreach is no less significant than any other municipalities in their census outreach. And not to kind of mimic what my colleagues may have already stated, but there's so much funding at stake. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know if you hear that.
You hear a little feedback, yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. If you see how we're operating right now, it's kind of crazy. All right, I'll just hold it. Okay, so so it's no less significant than any other municipality. A lot of our funding depends on it. Our outreach, the programs we may offer for seniors, our youth development, and etc.
Well, we certainly appreciate that, understanding that you also have to get back to the budget here. And one of the things that you came in and you were hearing Brecca and Dr. Abdullah talk a little bit about, I asked this fun question that we sort of end a lot of our conversations with, and that's, what makes Clayton County so special to you? Why does it hold a special place in your heart? Particularly for you, an elected official, and, wanting to serve the people of Clayton County, specifically the people of Forest Park. Why have you taken on that initiative?
So I think I caught the tail end of what Brecca was stating with not Forest Park, but Clayton County itself being a jewel that is untapped. And so I've often referred to Forest Park as being AAA certified, but it equally spills over to Clayton County as a whole. We are definitely affordable. Our price points compared to surrounding municipalities and counties is relatively on the low end. We are accessible because of our location to all the major interstates. And, you know, the airport is right here. Oh, and asset rich because of all of our untapped land that is just primed for development. It makes us a gem that has been overlooked for so long. And with our larger counterparts, they're kind of becoming overcrowded. And so it's only a matter of time before people start spilling over to Clayton County. And we just make sure that we are primed to take advantage of all the opportunities that are coming our way.
Awesome.
And who doesn't want to be a part of change, right?
It's true with everything going on. That's certainly is something folks are looking for and looking for a place that's, you know, inclusive. So thank you, Mayor Butler, for making this a priority and, you know, hopping out of your meeting. We want to make sure you get back to your hearing because we do know that budget is important. And, you know, the census budget, they go directly together. So we appreciate the time. We're going to go ahead and you know, close out today's segment. Again, I want to thank our three guests for joining us: Dr. Abdullah with Clayton State University, Mayor Butler with City of Forest Park, and then Brecca Johnson with Clayton County and the co-chair of the Clayton County Complete Count Committee. Before we log off, I did want to share some reminders with our viewers and audience and those that will view the recording. You know, there is 3 ways to complete your census. You can go to my2020census.gov to complete it online. You can call in via toll-free number at 844-330-2020. And if you've received that paper questionnaire in the mail or the subsequent reminders and you just throw them to the side, try to go through your junk mail to get to them because that is not junk mail. That is very important so that we can get those dollars and cents for our community, and you can just return that paper questionnaire. We would like for you to stay, you know, updated with what Fair Count's doing. We're going to continue this bus tour, virtual bus tour across the state. Again, this is our 4th stop. We'll be making an impact on over 75 counties in Georgia over the next 6 weeks. And so really appreciate you tuning in. And I wanted to give Brecca one more opportunity to share contact information for the Complete Count Committee if folks were interested in reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of just go back to, you know, emailing me, and I'm going to put that in the chat in just a second. Email me, let me know what interest you have, how you would like to volunteer in the areas. And if you don't know where you want to volunteer, I will help you with that because I would want our volunteers to do things in our areas that are the hardest to count. We'll make our focus there. And you'll get a snazzy t-shirt like I showed you before. And it is good stuff, I'm telling you. Clayton County. And now it says, ask me about the census, let's be counted. And you gotta know something about the census to wear that shirt. So I would love to train folks who want to be volunteers. To take 30 minutes, we'll talk about the census. I'll give you some information, basic stuff. You ask me any questions you have and I'll answer those. And we'll be more than happy to have our volunteers. So please email me again, brecca.johnson@claytoncountyga.gov. Or let me give you my phone number as well, is 404-557-2635. And you can call me or text me, let me know you have an interest, and we'll get you set up.
Awesome. And again, you can contact us at faircount.org. We have a ton of resources there. Where you can, you know, be able to organize, but also sign up to get updates from us. So with that, I again want to thank our panelists for joining us. I want to thank those that have tuned in, and we will make this recording available after today's event. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone stays safe and healthy and have a great weekend.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so
too.
much, Ed. Appreciate you.